Scott Welch, Muscle Insider Magazine. I'm here with Jim McMahon, CEO of Fit Foods, which is the parent company to PVL as well as Mutant. How are you doing today, Jim?
Phenomenal as always. I guess we can't state what day it actually is, but Arnold's is coming up, so I'm looking forward to that, and getting all ready. As you can tell, I'm already excited, so let's go.
Now, how many Arnolds have you done? I mean, obviously, you've been in the game for a long time. I assume that it was PVL brand that did the Arnold the first time when you brought it back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, I mean, being predominantly a Canadian brand, obviously, getting into the States is a little tougher, but I've always enjoyed going to the Arnold. If I can get to a show, I'm always happier anyways. The first time we did the Olympia and the Arnolds and even FIBO, any show, just always, I love just doing them because that's fist bumping, that's the camaraderie. And you and I've talked about that so many times over the years. I'm just a mark for the camaraderie of all of this. So I can't tell you if I've been to 20 straight because that would be a lie for the Arnolds, but I've been to as many as I could over the years, and the last few, obviously, since we became title sponsor for the Arnold Classic, 4 times in a row as the title sponsor. Here we go.
I was going to say that was one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is looking back. Obviously, you were supporting this show back in the day. The birth of Mutant was 2005, I believe, is when
Yeah.
it started, and then just continued to go and go and go. But you guys remained title sponsor 4 years ago and have been going on that straight. So, how's that experience been? Because obviously, Arnold is the largest sports festival in North America. How has that been so far for you?
Well, obviously, the first year had a little controversy. We don't need to go down that path. The opportunity was presented to us. I have to remind everybody of that. Me being a lover of bodybuilding and having watched Pumping Iron Run when I was a little guy, and you have to respect who helped us all get here. And so, without Arnold, not that he doesn't walk on water, but you got to show some respect here and there as we go along. And so, when the opportunity was presented to us, we said, listen, we're here to help. It was during the pandemic, and there wasn't a lot of people going to shows back then. So we were just thankful to be able to go do a show. And, the deal was to do it for 2 years. And then last year was the year number 3. And then it dawned on me this last year that, we've actually done this now 3 years in a row. And well, hold on here. We got to keep this going. So it became a real passion project for us. And I think this last year, we finally got our ass and act together to really go for it. And I think we're going to have just an absolute blast this time. I think when people see what we were doing, it's not just about us. It's not just about Mutant. And yeah, we're spending money. Of course, we want your awareness and attraction on us. We get that. But there really is a love of the camaraderie, the clang of the iron, the chalk flying off of somebody's back when you're slapping them on the back after a good squat session. So yeah, there'll just be some neat little things you'll see Mutant doing at the show on year number 4. And then we're not stopping.
Now, one of the things I thought that you guys did with obviously a few years ago, it was a bit controversial, and I had interviewed him at at West Coast Iron, obviously the home of the Mutant Nation, but which is bringing Shawn Ray on board, which obviously he is very tied to the Arnold Sports Festival, and I thought that was a brilliant move. A lot of people in the industry had their opinions on it, but I thought it was actually really, really smart to do this, not only because of him being an ambassador for bodybuilding, his tie to the Arnolds, and obviously the global, I guess, globetrotter that he happens.
Yeah.
I just think that you can love Shawn Ray or hate Shawn Ray, but I have found when I talked to him and got to know his knowledge level, study his knowledge level, I was shocked at how many media sources he'd worked for, how much media training he had at a young age. And I thought that looking at where Mutant was and trying to really go into the US market and going hardcore and really being part of the sport of bodybuilding, I thought it was a really smart move to sign him and then to bring his trophy to the Arnolds and allow
Yeah.
people to actually, I couldn't, that was smart. I'm surprised no one in the Southern industry ever did that before.
First of all, thank you for saying all the nice things you inferred about us being smart. Some days I don't always feel that way. And let's be blunt with everybody here. I'm not to sugarcoat crap for anybody. And Scott, am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
Of course.
Okay. Everybody who knows me. I got a potty mouth. Well, I don't want to get you demonetized though just yet. No, but Shawn is controversial. So what do you do, people? Wake the frick up. I don't always agree with everything that comes out of his mouth over the years, but again, I was raised, and I think most of us were, you don't judge another person until you've actually walked a mile in their shoes. And how many people appeared on the cover of Flex magazine when they were still in their teens? Excuse me, he doesn't walk on water either. Hanging with Shawn is interesting. I just got to be blunt. And if you've never got the chance, like Scott, you've hung out with so many people, you've trained with a lot of people too over the years, and you and I and a lot of people like us, we get to do things that a lot of fans wish they could go do. Just sit there and break bread with a Shawn Ray or, Jay Cutler, any of the guys. It's just a blessing. Anybody can sit on their couch in their basement and shoot off from the mouth and hide behind a fake Instagram account. Snowflakes like that can, F off and die as far as I'm concerned. Not really die. I'm sorry. You embrace that down. Yeah, having Sean around.
Apologize. You guys didn't apologize for signing him, and that's
No,
what
no.
I thought was smart.
And he is part of the lexicon or the encyclopedia of bodybuilding. Like he appeared on the Olympia stage a ton. He was top five, if I'm not mistaken, almost every time. So, he didn't, go to the extreme like a Dorian Yates or a Ronnie did. That's just not what he wanted to do. So, from a competitive standpoint, I go, you got to look at that history and go, that's a pretty impressive resume right there. And then to be a survivor in the industry, of any industry for that matter, nobody's perfect. And he's done really well at doing what he does. And yeah, so it's been just fantastic in a lot of aspects. And yeah, it's been a pain in the ass in some other aspects when people attack him. And I go, it doesn't bother us. So, whatever.
Well, the old any publicity is good publicity, but
Well, within reason. I just have no time for people who are takers on this planet. You're either a giver or you're a taker in my book. And if you're a taker, I got no time for it.
no, I think it was a good move, and I think obviously a lot of the moves that Mutant has been doing over the years is obviously continued to recalibrate the business in over 100 countries. I mean, some of the things that are notable is the flavors. I mean, your in-house lab is obviously second to none. I've tried it myself.
Yeah.
I just can't believe the level of scrutiny that you folks go through with flavor, and customer service first. I really thought was interesting with the last podcast you did with our friend Shane Smith at Stack 3D. I feel like you kind of come into your own, Jim, with Mutant. And I said this to Ian Bell. I feel like you know who Mutant is now. And I feel like in some ways it was an evolution
Yeah.
to say,
You
hey, we're hardcore and we don't apologize for this. And we're all about a brotherhood and we're all about good training, good nutrition. And as you said at the last podcast, you have to be dedicated and you have to be committed and continue to do that. And supplements are a supplement to a good diet and a supplement to a good training. But you obviously have to factor that all into what the Mutant brand is
yeah.
about. And I think that holistic approach and that knowing who you are and who you aren't, I think makes Mutant in a really good spot for 2024 and beyond.
Well, Scott, again, thank you. I'm gonna have to send you a few $5 bills on that last one. That was a lot of good
I got
compliments
this.
there.
This is all I need.
Even better. Um, no, like I don't know where to take it that one, but you're just let me come clean with you on that and with everybody who's going to watch this. Um, I think again the world changed during the last 3 or 4 years, and again I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I made no apologies for what I've done. Started in '96, and none of this was the plan. Like we didn't plan on the 100 countries. We didn't plan on Mutant coming out of the PVL brand in 2005 because it was PVL Mutant Mass and then took off on its own. So all I know is from my powerlifting days when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and I was, the body broke down. I was trying to get ready for the World Junior Championships. And so I've always known about the discipline and the hard work. And I always watched bodybuilders and I thought, you guys are insane. Like powerlifting, that's where I come from. So none of my powerlifter brothers and sisters get mad at me for saying this, but come on, really? We lift, we sit down, we talk for a few minutes. The bodybuilding, that's a different
Yeah,
stretch.
yeah.
So getting to hang with Dusty and Ron and then Shawn Ray and now Sean Clarita and Andrea and everybody, it's a reminder of the consistency and discipline. And those are the two words that Ron and Dusty and I really go into. We don't want to come up with 1,000 new words for everybody to try to remember. You want to know what we stand for is the consistency and discipline. We apply it in two areas, and that is getting your ass off the couch to get to the gym, and then making sure you're feeding the body for whatever your goal is. We don't tell anybody what to eat. We don't tell anybody how to eat. And we don't tell or demand them to use any supplements whatsoever. You've heard me before. I
Yeah.
go, I'm just as thrilled if somebody learns how to eat 4 or 5, maybe 6 smaller meals a day, as 99% of the people don't even know that out there.
That's right. That's right.
So as far as what this birth is, I like to call it a reawakening. It's more like, you know what, during the COVID years, to call them that, um, we had to just, pivot obviously to survive, but also is like, you know what, I'm in my mid 50s now, and I'm just a pissed off, cantankerous Uncle Jimmy. Uh, those of you who watch the '70s show in North America, I'm like the Red Foreman. I want to put my boot up the ass of so many people just because they don't get it. And I don't like seeing people waste their time either. So that's the reawakening of Mutant. We're just hyper committed to the consistency and the discipline, and we got no time for people who don't get it. And so we're the home for people who do get it. It's as simple as that.
You've always been criticized in some ways in the industry as being maybe too dedicated to the specialty channel and that sports nutrition consumer. But I thought that it was interesting that obviously you guys are distributed all over the world in over 100 countries, but you've really stayed true to that bricks and mortar retailer that obviously you've still not ignoring Amazon. You guys are very strong, committed to there and strong with
Yeah.
direct to consumer. But I thought it was good that you really knew who Mutant was. And on the last Mutant interview with Stack 3D, you sort of had said, hey, on the distribution side, this is kind of where we're focused. I thought that it's a really good place for Mutant there because that channel is going to get a more informed consumer, somebody who wants the best. And I think that it's great that you're supporting that. And I almost feel like if more specialty channel retailers knew what business Mutant turns away versus just
Yeah.
takes, I think they might be more loyal to, keeping dedicated shelf space to you
Yeah.
and to, the other brands that you have under your portfolio.
Scott, thanks for recognizing that. And, I could answer that or talk about it in a dozen different ways. Ironic, I won't mention names, but ironically, I had one of the world's largest retailers reach out to me yesterday. We had a conversation, and some of what you just said is actually kind of what they're asking me. And I don't mean to sound like I'm crapping on other brands. I know some other brands get me wrong, and I don't, and so I'm not trying to crap on brands that do things that we don't do.
Sure.
I'm just trying to make sure that everybody understands what we do stand for. Like this is our purpose over here. And we're not saying we're right. We're just saying it's the Mutant way or it's the PVL way. And our thing with Mutant in particular is to recognize that, hey, hardcore doesn't shop everywhere. But it does, some people are Amazon buyers, but in other places. But if you try to be all things to all people, then you end up standing for nothing.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to, name names of brands that have done where they've tried to be all things to all people. I'll mention, some retailers in that non-specialty retailers. I mean, like, so, if you're more of a specialty brand, but you thinking, being on Walmart or something like that is the right move for you, well, then go ahead and do it.
Sure.
I just don't think it's the right move for Mutant and the hardcore stance and where we're at and what we're doing right now. And you never say never either. Like I'm always going to be honest about that. But yeah, um, the other way I look at it too is while I am a fan of some old movies like Wall Street and Gordon Gekko famously said, greed is good. I don't subscribe absolutely to that theory because greed can also take you down some bad paths. And so if you're trying to be all things to all people, your greed meter might be a little off kilter. Just throwing it out there. Don't shoot me. I didn't name any brands. But our thing is we just want to stay true and we don't need to blow up to $500 million a year. It'd be nice. I'm not stupid.
Sure. Yeah.
We're darn happy where we're at and it's growing. So, pursuing revenue at the expense of our purpose just doesn't make sense to me. So we'll stick to our purpose and it's working out business wise anyways. So we don't need to be extra greedy like Gordon Gekko was in the movie Wall Street.
What I'm excited about is to see an even harder core Mutant. And
Oh,
I've
good
heard
Lord.
about this new packaging update that's coming. Obviously, it's caught a lot of buzz in the industry. Arnold Sports Festival. It'll be outside of the theater. You said at the last interview,
Yeah.
in the hallways. And this will be a new brand. And I mean, Ian Bell had said it, in 25 years in the industry, he hadn't seen anything like it. And I thought that it was very very edgy already. But if this is as unique as it sounds, I think that fans are in for a real treat and a real statement. And
Yeah.
I think it's just really exciting that you chose a festival to be the launch of this rather than just launch it out in the market. And we've all seen that in the industry with other brand
Yeah.
rebrands that it just rolls out. Whereas you've kind of said this is an event that kind of is part of the culture and rolling that out. I thought was really well done.
It is. And again, it's a wonderful intersection of so many different things coming together. This is not going to go off perfect whenever you do a rebirth, a reawakening, or a relaunch. But we didn't want to, again, we're, I don't like it when brands go on podcasts and just talk about themselves and say how brilliant they are and how different they are.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest with you. I've been around the block, as you know, and
Yeah.
we've both seen so much in this industry. I authentically know in my heart that what we're doing is a true reawakening. And so the packaging is part of it. So the packaging is obviously the outer shell. You will noticeably see something demonstrably different than what we've ever done before, demonstrably different from everything else. You remember, like, okay, you and I both get asked to be consultants a lot.
Yeah.
And how many brands have asked all consultants in sport nutrition in the last 5 or 7 years? Probably one of the number one. Hey, can you make me look like Ghost? Or can you do what Redcon does? Or and so on and so forth. And I'm like, we did a 180 degree from that. We had to make sure we don't look like anything else, anything at all.
Wow. That is a
And
strong statement.
yeah, and that's hard. Now, we're not that smart. And so it was a really good industry friend of ours and one that I'd worked with way back in the day when I was manufacturing all the muscle farm products. So this should be a tip off to a few people out there. And so that gentleman, who shall remain nameless for the time being, reached out to me about a year and a half ago, and he says, "Hey Jim, can I save you from your own dumbass self?" I said, because I knew where he was going. I said, "Yay." I knew we were going to connect again one day, and I was so thankful for the call. Now, I've heard on some other podcasts, when they talk about rebranding, and rebranding, and go to art director and get your branding all redone. And I talked about that over a decade ago. Um, and yeah, 20 grand, 25 grand, you can get an art direction. That's not what we did. This is not just art. This is reawakening what was already inside the brand and really fucking getting rid of all the clusterfuck shit that was blocking it from it coming out. And this thing is going to come out hopefully like a little bit of a rupturing volcano. And then we expect it to keep spewing for a little while. So the visuals are just, they're great, but they're just the tip of the iceberg. And so we also got to take some of the formulas back into the garage. And again, I've already pre-warned yourself and a few others in the industry where I'm going with a couple of things, meaning part of
No
our
coconut water powder, right?
yeah, no more coconut water powder. I'll soft pedal it with you because it's you and I and some other things. But yeah, I don't want to piss on other brands or competitors. Not my role. And I've done some of those things in the past, let's be honest. But at the same time, I go, listen, I just want to make sure that people know what we stand for. And so when we're putting in electrolytes, yeah, we're not putting in any coconut water powder and I'm not picking on coconut water powder. What I really picked on, just to be accurate, was the dose.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, the stuff's only like 3% potassium. You got to put in like a gram or two to get enough of an efficacious dose on the potassium side, because it's not the same as coconut water, the liquid.
That was an interesting clarity that you gave on. I'd never heard that before. Was that the potassium sodium ratio and the other electrolytes that were in coconut water itself weren't the problem. It was actually when they played it to the powder, which I believe is maltodextrin, isn't it? The powder.
You know, you being a GMP certified manufacturer, unfortunately or fortunately, gives you a window into asking a lot of the pedantic questions that people just don't care about. But at the same time, we have to ask because the FDA and Health Canada and AQUA's down in Australia and every other jurisdiction around the world if you don't declare your ingredients properly, you could be in a little bit of trouble, right? And
Mhm.
so when you're buying coconut water powder, what we discovered is when we started asking more questions, we weren't getting answers.
Mhm.
And again, I don't have time for bull crap in my world. Uh, and if I can't get a straight answer from somebody, my spidey senses have already answered the question. So I'm not going to get a straight answer. Screw you. You're no longer an ingredient supplier of ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple as that. So I'm not trying to pick on brands that use the ingredients. I'm actually, and when I talk with this other brand representative, I said, what I'm trying to get you to do, because I really love the brands. Like I love Muscle Tech, what you guys are doing over there and championing the ingredients. You know, I love that part. What I want us though is to all band a little bit further together and really separate us all from a lot of the brands that just don't deserve to be here, that don't give a shit about GMP, that are come and gone in 1 or 2 years, and that their purpose is profit first, not
Yeah.
purpose first.
That's right.
So that's why I'm trying to champion these kind of things. Is not to make ourselves bigger amongst the crowd. No, we want to make sure that the right crowd of people who give a shit about these formulas, who give a shit about our industry, that give a shit about being here, that give a shit about lifetime value of customers, but also of self. Like, I don't want to retire. Like, I like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I may have to retire, or I may want to retire, or maybe, whatever is upstairs is going to reach down and say, you got to go somewhere else now, bro. You're done. But as long as we got this going on, I'm going to be a champion of good, good, and good. And you and I both know there's way too much riffraff out there, and you know there's thresholds. But I'm sorry, when somebody sells a weight gainer powder and then slaps a whey protein label on it, I go, that's really freaking egregious.
Yeah. There's just no regulations in some of the aspects of it in certain countries. And it's just,
Yeah,
the thing I love about Mutant is manufacturing your own powders allows you to control what's in it. And I think during the pandemic, you guys really did really well in having those 20 plus year relationships where you could count on bottle suppliers, you could count on creatine
yeah,
suppliers and protein suppliers and things like that. But throughout it, I think it made all of the companies, more focused on what they do well and what they need to do more of. But I think now, fast forwarding here, coming through that, I'm excited to see where things go. Arnold Classic, I mean, our Arnold Sports Festival, I always call it the Classic just from the old
the
days.
same here. Yeah, I still call it the classic as well.
I'm like, and so we've got another, I mean, obviously the paraxanthine, the Infinity paraxanthine
Yeah,
with John Wells and Ralph. And, when you and I were talking one time, it was, and I'm not surprised at all, you had a file on paraxanthine
yeah.
from years ago, like 20 years ago, looking at different methylxanthines, because obviously you're an ingredient nerd like me. But tell us a bit about that, because obviously that's hot news. You got a new
Yeah.
product you kept under wraps. Even Shane Smith didn't know about it. So
No,
I thought
no,
that was really cool. But that's really exciting to see the obviously Mutant brand getting into that. And obviously with your global
yeah.
exposure and your manufacturer, I think it's going to be a tremendous success.
It's going to be an interesting product. Like I know paraxanthin is the topic right now, and for some people, it's an exciting topic. But I want you and I to take some of the listeners down a different path as well, and be authentic with a lot of people still don't understand it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real travesty because when I talk with Shawn Wells, and I know you talk with him well, a lot of us talk with Shawn, and the stuff they're going to discover further and further about this infinity might not mean a whole bunch to, the 18-year-old who just wants 600 milligrams of caffeine and, isn't thinking about what I think about or you think about. But also, our attitude was a little different on our formula. And I can't even say what we're coming out with as a paraxanthin product. I can't even say that. It's got paraxanthin in it.
It's just one of the many ingredients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, um, hey, I respect the sandbox of the industry too. And so I didn't want to just come out and copy what had already been done by Muscle Tech. And I thought, how are we going to take this pretty interesting ingredient, which a lot of people still don't understand,
Yeah.
and we were like wrestling and wrestling, and this formula probably went through about 20 changes before I said, oh man, if you were talking with Ian Bell the other day, or Brent or any of the guys over on our team, they'll tell you I pissed them all off at the 11th hour.
11th hour, you changed the formula.
I
I love it.
changed the formula further, and yeah, like ours, I'll give you some insights. I can't disclose because we're going to
Don't disclose that.
unveil it at the Arnold.
In
But
general, I want to see it at the Arnold in its full,
so
what it deserves, you know?
yeah, so in general, it started off as a mutated pre-workout product, but of course not going to. We're not going to do the 12 grams of L-citrulline thing. It's overkill, and I'm not a fan. To me, it's stupid, to be honest with you.
Plus, it'll clump. I mean, you know that.
Yeah, but I'm a big fan of the nitrosogen. So you may have heard me talk. Shane on the Stack podcast gave me some jovial crap. Holy crap! It took you 5 years to finally decide to use nitrosogen. No, it didn't take me 5 years to decide. It took me 5 years to get it on the radar the right way.
Yeah,
Because again, we don't want to just do Me Too products that don't stand a hope in hell of helping people. And
yeah,
so I really had to sit back and listen and listen and listen and listen to people talk about the ingredient that was already out there, talk about the pre-workout category, talk about the Muscle Tech product as well. And I was like, there's something unique. I just got to find it. And pretty much at the 11th hour is when I found it, I think. And a couple of the guys inside were already beta testing the product, and they were already loving what I was making. We probably had 4 months of beta testing going on here. But when I did the 11th hour one, and man, I do have the biggest business card here, yet I still caught holy hell from my own team.
I happen to own the place, you know?
Yeah, geez. Um, but that's the level of passion and caring I applaud. But anyways, when I sent them this 11th hour beta test, I said, just try it. And they all went, oh, wow, that is different. And I said, yeah, because I don't want it to be like anything else. But but really what we were solving, I think we were, instead of inventing a new product or a new category, I wanted to go back to the roots of what we're supposed to be doing. And that is also solving a real frickin' problem that everybody has.
Yeah,
And I don't think people quite recognize the problem of pre-workouts, because pre-workouts are just dismissed. They become popular fodder. You could probably have a late night show and people just would talk about pre-workouts now. And I was like, yeah, no worries. I get it. I don't want to participate in having 40 different pre-workouts. I probably made 50 different pre-workouts in my
sure.
lifetime.
Yeah,
But I wanted to make something that was Ron and Dusty approved, Sean Clarita approved, Andrea Shaw approved, so that they could actually understand and go, oh, I don't need 12 grams of citrulline to actually have a better
yeah,
workout.
yeah.
And there's 1,000 brands out there doing the 12 grams of citrulline or 600 milligrams of caffeine, and that's fine. Hey, Mutant Madness is being reawakened, and that's our caffeine-based one. We make no apologies. It's caffeine-based. It is what it is. But this thing had to really turn on your mind, freak you right out of your gourd, and do it without the use of caffeine. And I also don't think a lot of consumers quite understand, and I think we should disclose that too. I don't think a lot of consumers quite understand that what the patent owners of the Infinity brand paraxanthin want to see accomplished for once, and I applaud this idea. I thought this was brilliant. I'm so thankful that an ingredient company isn't hoovering out their ingredient to everybody. And they're also putting stipulations on it that for this thing to be felt the right way, it cannot be blended with, caffeine and synephrine and other things. So, and it's because you are going to get a better workout. And I'll explain at a later date what we mean by better workout, because it's going to be demonstrable
Yeah.
and actually measurable. And that's how we're positioning our product. It's going to be something that you can actually measure on the very first workout. Very
That's
first workout.
No, I think it's good. And you touched on this in the previous interviews about, you could be stimmed out of your mind, and that might work for like high rep days, training
Yeah.
shoulder side raises, or just doing an arm pump, or even running and, endurance type of training. But when you get into leg workouts, rowing, just some things that are exhausting, you want to be able to give it your all and have something that's more functional. And I thought that All Out was very much like that, you know, where you're sort of, sorry, All In. My
Yeah,
apologies, All In.
that's okay.
Um, where you actually had the functional ingredients, the BCAAs that obviously help the body if it's taken pre-workout, and obviously there's some good research on that.
Yeah,
A completed formula full dose, but it's obviously you have different pre-workouts, and I think that's a little different now in this era versus the era that you and I kind of grew up with over the years, where there was always the one pre-workout, but
yeah,
some of the top companies have proven that you can have multiple pre-workouts, and there's different needs that a consumer may have. You know, maybe it's leg day, they need this, but maybe they just want something in the morning to get them a pick me up, but they don't want to crash halfway through the day. So I think that
yeah,
some of the brands out there have shown that there can be multiple pre-workouts, and I also think that the life cycle of a pre-workout is different now, where you almost have to innovate more consistently
yeah,
and be willing to update formulas. And obviously, I think the new packaging refresh will obviously be just that,
yeah,
awaken things. I mean, I know there's not going to be a change in mute mass and some of those core items that you have, but I think that just that extra appeal on the packaging and the feel of the
yeah,
product, the look of the product, you know, brings younger people into it and also helps get people excited to show that, hey, you're always evolving, always getting better. And I
yeah,
think that's what makes a bodybuilder, someone who's always willing to try to get better every day. So it's great to see
yeah.
you followed suit with that.
Yeah, no question. When it comes to the pre-workout category, just to go back to that,
Yeah.
we recognize that a vast majority of the consumers of the pre-workout powders themselves, they want to try different things. And so, we get it. And so the only flag in the ground we're trying to, put in there is to go, listen, if you want to go high stem and you just want to get super caffeinated and, it's as simple as that, then keep it really simple.
Yeah.
And I'm begging consumers for their consistency and discipline. The gym membership and your food are your two biggest expenses. Watch out where you're putting your supplement dollars in.
Yeah.
And so I would challenge consumers to just be mindful that, if your primary supplement dollars are going into your pre-workouts, boy, you better have a lot of money, because if you're deficient in your protein and macro intake, and yet you're putting your money on your pre-workouts, I go, okay, we're not so sure how hardcore you are. So, maybe we're not the brand for you. That's okay.
Right.
And so the mutant stance stands only for those people who understand that, hey, if I want to do high stem, that's what I'm going to do. And Mutant Madness is, it's just a very simple product. It's high stem, it's low on everything else. We're just being honest about it. And it fucking gets the job done. What more do you want? It ain't rocket science. And then here comes this other new one that's coming, Mind something
Yeah.
to be announced at some point.
Yeah.
Um, it's a radical departure. It's like nothing else that I've ever quite seen. Like, again, we went to pre-workout, but then we went obviously more on the focus. I don't mind revealing that part.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a bit of a trip for a lot of people. But I want to emphasize it's going to be something you can measure the very first time you take it, and we'll tell you how to measure it. And those who get it, those who actually train hardcore, will be able to notice the difference. Those who do not train hardcore and just do this when they're doing their bicep curls, they might not get it, and then whoop-de-doo, Basil, it'll just be the other one of 50 jars on the back of their Instagram post when they're trying to be a TikTok elite person.
And Dusty will be approved of this because he's not much for caffeine, from what I remember.
He is not a
Just getting him
caffeine
to
dude.
drink coffee, pre-workout. He's just not a caffeine guy. So
No.
interested to hear his feedback on a caffeine alternative, an upgraded caffeine like Infinity Paraxanthine. What his feedback will be.
Well, again, yeah, when you see the formula, it just becomes blatantly obvious what it is. You go, oh, okay, that's going to be trippy to try. And I believe that'll be the bulk of the response for people who know their ingredients. Like
Awesome.
it, yeah, it's got a 6 gram mega blend of something that most brands only put in like maybe 1 gram of these two ingredients combined, or maybe 2 grams combined. We put in 6. I go, holy frick. And then there's another one in there that, some people maybe put in like 200 or 300 milligrams. And we put in 1,000 milligram blend of these other two ingredients. And I go, yeah, so there's some there's some mind expanding things that we put in this
Yeah.
that it's just going to let the paraxanthin and other things ride the wave. It's just going to be an interesting, trippy experience. That's the best way I could keep putting it.
I'm excited. I think it really crosses over for Mutant into other areas. And I saw like Ghost with their Ghost Gamer kind of have this.
No, no, don't compare it to, no, no,
No,
no,
I
no.
just mean that when you get into that nootropic neuro area in
Yeah,
sport, you start to tap into another area where
yeah,
consumers, I mean, we see students using pre-workouts for having more energy. We're seeing
yeah,
gamers use pre-workouts to go further in their game. But that cross area, I think it's just kind of cool. And I think that to
no
see
question.
the nootropic really leaned in with some technology like this,
Yeah,
I think is a very exciting. And I know it's going to taste great. So I think I'm very excited to try
yeah.
that. And obviously, George and the crew over at the Arnold Sports Festival will be at the Arnold
It,
Sports
it,
Festival
it'll,
setting up.
it'll taste
We'll have
great. Yeah,
tons of those fountain drinks flowing.
exactly. And flow is the right word. We all talk about mind flow. And that's and you and I both know about nitrosogen and new level,
Yeah.
so go to work in 15 minutes and last up to 6 hours. And so that flow state. So even if you're not working out, like tonight, I have a lot of work to do after we record this. And so I'll be here till like 10 or 11 p.m. and I'll be having a scoop of this. And not because I got to go work out, but because just the mind flow alone is just going to be incredible. And I need it tonight, especially.
Very good. Well, listen, this has been a great preview. I really appreciate your time, Jim. Arnold Classic is going to be obviously on fire next weekend. We're looking for a massive presence from Mutant, and obviously the Stack 3D Expo is going to be there, where
Yeah,
PVL is making their, I guess, I wouldn't say it's their debut, but it's almost like a what would you say, like the Gold Series debut?
sure. We'll go with that.
But
And
it's
it's
and
Yeah,
it's
and
part of that.
yeah, it's going to be flipping fun if you're not following Shy Ross on Instagram. Shy's got 1 million followers these days, and so he'll be there. He's been on Team PVL since before he had 1 million followers. So we're quite excited to have Shy and Emily and the rest of the team Team PVL there as well.
Going to be great.